Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have my latest currently inked video, and this is the currently inked for the 3rd of June 2019. So I have 10 pens here and I'll go through these one by one. So from left to right we have the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Hawaii. We have the Scribo Fill in the grey. We have a Visconti Divina Elegance Green. We have a Visconti Van Gogh Starry Night. We have a Visconti Van Gogh Pollard Willows. We have a Parker Duofold Prestige. We have a Visconti Millennium Arc, and this is the Moonlight Green edition. Another Visconti Millennium Arc, and this is the Burgundy. A Pelikan M600 Turquoise White, and a Fine Writing International Bronze Age Demonstrator. So I think let's start looking at these pens in a little bit more detail, and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right, we'll look at these in a little bit more detail. This is the lovely Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero, and this is the Hawaii, and this is a gorgeous pen and a pen that I really do love the material on. And this is a resin pen, not a celluloid, and it comes with a steel nib, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But you can see this material here, it is really quite stunning. It has this very much like a beach effect going on. So it really is a lovely material. So if I unscrew this, you'll see here it comes with a Leonardo standard steel nib. It's a Bock nib and it's a broad nib. Now you can also see here, in terms of in the size of my hand, the pen is actually quite a nice size. You can post the cap if you really want to. And to be honest, I find this cap is quite light, so this sometimes is a pen that I do post, even though I don't actually need to, because it's actually quite a good, decent sized pen. But it just feels more natural for me to actually post this pen. So that's something that I do. Now, you'll see here that you have the threads. There's a little bit of a step down here, but it has a metal ring, and then the section tapers down to a much narrower section, and that is actually quite a nice feel in my hand. I do prefer it when the sections taper out slightly, but I find this is actually quite good. So in terms of the filling mechanism, this is a cartridge converter, and you can also access that cartridge converter if you really want to blindly through this blind cap. To be honest, it's not something that I would really want to do. I'd rather see the amount of ink that is in the converter. So it's just as easy to unscrew the body instead of the end cap or the blind cap. But still, that's a feature of the Leonardo pens, very similar to some other Italian pens in the past, like the Delta pens had that same feature. But it's actually a really nice pen. So I currently have that inked up at the moment, and that's inked up with Diamine Sapphire Blue. I have my Scribo Fill, and that is now re-inked, and I've put a different ink in here this time around. But you can see here, this is the Scribo Fill, and this is effectively the rebirth of Omas, with some of the original employees from Omas that set up Scribo when Omas went under. Now, they did actually buy the nib manufacturing equipment back from Bock, so there are two types of nibs. There's a 14 karat gold flex nib, and then there's an 18 karat gold regular nib, and I have the flex nib here, and I really do love these flex nibs. They are effectively the original Omas nibs. So if you have heard or know about the OMOS OM81 flex nibs, then this is a really good nib. And you can see there that the body is actually faceted, but it's also a bit of a curvy hourglass shape going on. And although that looks initially a little bit uncomfortable, it's actually really comfortable to hold in the hand. There is a slight step down here, and then you have the threads. The threads are not sharp, and it's just a really nice pen to write with. So I really do like having that pen inked up. Then we have the Visconti Divina, and this is the Elegance, and it's the green. And this is a really beautiful pen. I really love this material that's going on here. It's really nice. So this is a pen that I do like a lot, and you can see here this material is really quite stunning. Just the way it captures the light, a lot of chatoyance that goes on there. So this is a really good model. It's a model that I have come to love a lot, and I will show you here the nib on this pen. It's a 23 cat palladium nib, and it's a medium nib, but this is actually a really nice nib for me. Now the filling system is a captured converter, and you operate it through this little knob here. I'm not going to pull it out and twist it because it's going to start to eject ink out, but it's a captured converter. But this pen really is a lovely pen. So I have this currently inked up with Diamond Meadow, which is a really lovely green ink that I do like. And then there's a couple of pens here that I haven't inked up. Actually, quite a few of these I haven't inked up for a while now. But these are the Viscontis, and these are Van Goghs. So this one here is the Starry Night, and you can see here this pen really, this material is absolutely gorgeous. So it's really like an oil painting, and that's really what Visconti set out for, to try and reproduce some of the Vincent van Gogh artwork into pens. And this is one of the sort of lower to maybe mid-range pens that Visconti have. They have a lot more higher range pens now, but this is a magnetic closure. It comes with a chrome plated section, a number 5 still Visconti nib, and I've got these in a medium nib. And if I unscrew the body, you can see it's a cartridge converter. So it's not a power vac or anything like that, but it's a really good sort of, I want to call it a starter or a low entry pen, but it's actually not, because you have the Rembrandts and now you have other pens that have actually come in under a lower price point. So this is really sort of pushing its way up a little bit. It's not quite midpoint in terms of price, but this is a pen. Now, a lot of people don't like these chrome sections. I really haven't had that much of an issue with these in terms of finding them slippery. You can post this cap, and to be honest, I actually do. This cap is actually pretty light, and it just, for me, feels a little bit more sort of really natural in the hand. So I have this inked up at the moment with Diamine Maureen. So that is a lovely pen. And then I have another Van Gogh here, and this is the Pollard Willows. And if I zoom in here, you'll see this cap. It really is gorgeous. It's a lot of browns and greens and reds and pinks. It really is a beautiful pen, and you can see here in the body as well, you've got some cream and white going on in there. And I really do think that Visconti have, certainly in the pens that I have here, have done a really good job in trying to capture this. So if I show you here, again, it's a magnetic closure, and it is a number 5 nib, and again this is a medium nib, and like the Starry Night you will see that this again is a cartridge converter. So again, no power vac fillers here. It will hold around 0.7 milliliters of ink, and then you can see here the size of my hand, and then I can post the cap as well, and it really does feel quite natural. It doesn't really feel back weighted at all. So for me, again, this is a pen that I normally like to post the cap on. So that's the Visconti Pollard Willows, and now we have this, and this is a Parker Duofold, and it's the Prestige. And this is a pen that I like the look of a lot, and it's quite a heavy pen because it's made of metal. But you have this lovely chevron effect going on there, and it's called the Blue Chevron. And you can see there the Parker clip, but this chevron is a really nice sort of approach, and then you have the Parker Duofold medallion there. But then in terms of the size of my hand, let's have a look. This is actually quite a nice pen. Now, this is a pen that I wouldn't post because it is a heavy pen. And if I zoom in, you can look at the nib there. It's a Parker Duofold nib. It's an 18 karat gold nib, and that's a medium nib. And I do love how this nib writes. So that also is, I'll show you here, this is very, very tough to unscrew because there is an O-ring gasket just here. But you'll see it's a cartridge converter, but this really is, like when you get to this point, it really is a tough pen to screw up and unscrew. But it's a pen again that I do like, and it's a nice pen, and it writes well. And then I have a couple of other Viscontis here. So these are the Millennium Arcs, and this is the Moonlight Green, and this has what I believe Visconti called the Kaleido pattern here. You have a lot of these swirls that go on in the body, and this really is lovely. Now, I picked these up actually quite cheaply compared to what they were originally selling for, MSRP. Now, there's several things to know about these pens, and it does put a lot of people off. It hasn't put me off. The first thing is they are sac filling pens. So you have this like crescent or sort of filler here. Visconti call it the arc filler because Conklin theirs is called a crescent filler. So that's the first thing that can put people off. The second thing is the nib. So the nib is a tubular nib, and you can see there how this wraps around the feed, and this they call a chromium nib, or chromium 18 or CR18. Now this nib is effectively steel, but it has chrome in it, and it's just a marketing branding for a steel nib. So that does put some people off. Also the chrome section going on here. So it's a number of things that put people off on this pen. I like the pen, and I don't have an issue with the filling mechanism, and the nib writes very smooth and quite wet. So for me, that's quite good. You can post these caps. It does get a little bit long though. So normally I would not post these caps. And that really is the Millennium Arc. And then we have another Millennium Arc here as well, and this is the same pen, but it's in burgundy. So again, you have this arc filler here, so it's a sac inside. You depress this and it sucks up ink, and again it's got a chromium 18 nib on it. So again, this is just a nib that some people love to hate, and for me, I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem if Visconti put these nibs on an expensive pen, but these weren't that expensive for me. They were about the price when I picked them up of a Van Gogh. So for me, that was actually, I think, a pretty good price. But you can see here this again, this material, it's not quite as accented, and it doesn't really have the Kaleido sort of white pattern, swirly pattern in that cap or in that body. But it's a nice pen, and it's a pen that I do like the look of, and I do like how it writes. Then we have the Pelikan M600, and this is the turquoise white. And again, like, this is a pen that I do like a lot. It's a little bit on the thin side for me. I tend to post this cap as well, because the cap posts quite deeply. It just feels more natural to me, and the cap is very light. The pen is very light as well. And then you can see here it has an 18 karat gold nib, and you'll see here it's a broad nib, and it's a piston filler. So for me, I do like that because it will hold a fair amount of ink. And then there was a pen that I also picked up in London along with the Hawaii, and this is the Fine Writing International, and it's the Bronze Age Demonstrator. Now, you can eyedropper this. I still haven't eyedroppered the pen, and I still fill the cartridge converter here. But it's a clipless pen, but you don't really need a clip. The pen won't roll around on your desk, although if you do try to clip it into pockets, that will be a problem because there's no clip. But you will see here that it's actually quite a nice size. Now, this brass here is actually starting to patina a little bit. I don't know if you can see it there. It has a lovely black nib, and these are Yovo nibs, and I got this in a broad nib, and I got this from John Hall right here. But this is a really nice size. Now, you could post it if you want to. It's not going to be secure, really. Like, you can push it on a little bit harder, but for me, this isn't a secure posting of the pen, and to be honest, I don't need that extra weight because this cap is pretty heavy. So that's the 10 pens that I have currently inked up that I'm writing with at the moment. So I think let's do a writing sample. So the first pen here, let's do an ink swatch. So as you can see here, this is actually quite a nice blue ink. It's quite a saturated, concentrated blue as well. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Noodler's Bay State Blue, but not quite as saturated, but it's saturated a lot more than other inks. So this is the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero, and it is the Hawaii in a broad nib. And the ink in here is, just double check, is Diamine Sapphire Blue. It's actually quite a nice ink. So the next pen we have is the Scribo Feel. And to match the colour of the pen, I have a grey ink inside it as well, because I do, where possible, like to match my ink colours to pen colours. So this is the Scribo Feel, and it's a medium nib, but it's a 14 karat flex nib. And the ink in here is Pilot Iroshizuku and it is Kiri Sami. And that for me is a lovely grey ink. I tend to sort of go between Kiri Sami and Diamine Earl Grey a lot. They're my two favourite grey inks. Then we have the Visconti, and we'll do a swatch here. And again, I'm a stickler for matching ink colours to pen colours. I know not everybody does this, but it's something that I tend to like to do a lot. And this is the Visconti Divina Elegance in green. Should do that. And it is a medium nib. And the ink that I have in here at the moment is Diamine Meadow. And this is a lovely sort of bright, vibrant ink, but not too bright that you can't see it on white paper. So for me, that is an ink that I do like quite a lot. The next pen is a Visconti Van Gogh. You can see here. And this is a Visconti Van Gogh, and it's the Starry Night. And just checking this because I think it's actually a fine nib. Yeah, it's actually a fine nib. I thought this was a medium nib, but it's actually a fine nib. And the ink that I have inked up is somewhat recent ink that I have purchased. It's a Diamine ink, and it's Diamine Maureen. I say recent. I've had it now for 5 months, but it's an ink that I've started to use a little bit more of recently. And then we have this Visconti, and it's another Van Gogh. And let's have a look at this. And you can see here this lovely brown ink. So again, I'm matching the ink to my pens. I don't think that's a bad thing personally. It's something that I like to do. It actually reminds me, if I pick up a pen, what colour ink is going to be in that pen, rather than trying to have to guess what I inked it up with. So this is a Visconti Van Gogh, and it's the Pollard Willows. And this one is actually a medium nib. And the ink in here is Diamine Ochre. And Diamine Ochre is very, very close to the Akamon SBRE Brown. There's hardly anything in it whatsoever. So the next pen I have here inked up is the Parker Duofold. And this I find is actually quite a wet writer pen. Quite a gusher really of a pen. And because it doesn't actually have any fins on the feed, you tend to find that you get a lot of nib creep on this nib. So it's a Parker Duofold, and it's the Prestige. It does sing a little bit, this nib, and it's a blue chevron, and it's a medium 18 karat gold nib. And the ink that I have inked up in here at the moment is Parker Quink Blue. But this is a gusher of a nib, so I do like my nibs writing very, very wet. Then we have a Visconti and shock horror. We have another green ink, and this is a super wet writer as well, and you can see this here, the amount of ink that it's laying down. So this is the Visconti, and this is why I like this nib, because it's super, super wet. Millennium Arc, and it's the Moonlight, and it is a medium nib, but you can just see how wet this nib is. Now the ink in here is Visconti green, and it's actually a very dark green ink, and that always surprises me. Very different to, say, the Diamine Meadow up here. And then the next pen is, again, another Visconti. And again, this is quite a wet writer, but not quite as wet as the previous one. So this is a Visconti, again, Millennium Arc, and this is the Burgundy. Now, comparing these two here, if that's a medium, you would think this is a fine, but no. It's actually a broad. So, it just goes to show that you can't always trust two sizes of nibs and two sizes of nibs from the same manufacturer, because that writes very, very differently. And the ink in here I have is Visconti Bordeaux. But even though that's a very wet writer, it still isn't a... I wouldn't say that personally was a broad. I would say the Moonlight is actually a broad, and the Burgundy was a medium, but that's what the nibs say. And then we have the Pelikan M600. And again, in terms of ink, I have a lovely turquoise ink in this pen. Why wouldn't you? Because ultimately it's a turquoise white pen, and you can't get white fountain pen ink. So this is a Pelikan M600 turquoise white. Now, this is a broad as well, so if you compare these side by side, then you can kind of see that's a broad. I always find the Pelikan boards tend to be more like mediums for me, at least in the M600s and M800 pens. The M1000s, they're more like a triple board. So the ink in here is Pelikan turquoise, and this is a really lovely ink. And I actually love Konpeki, Palette Washizuku Konpeki, but this is an ink that I also love as well. And then the final pen is a Fine Writing International. And again, this is a very wet writing nib as well. So it's a Fine Writing International, and it's the Bronze Age Demonstrator, which is a brass pen. And the nib in here, it's a Yovo nib, steel nib, and it's a broad nib. And the ink that I have inked up is KWZ Honey. And that is a lovely colour ink. So if we just go back over those pens again that are inked, we have the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Hawaii with a broad nib and diamine sapphire blue. We have a Scribo Feel with a medium 14 karat gold flex nib, and that is inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Kirisami. We have a Visconti Divina Elegance Green in a medium 23 karat palladium nib, inked up with Diamine Meadow. We have a Visconti Van Gogh Starry Night in a fine nib, inked up with Diamine Maureen. We have a Visconti Van Gogh Pollard Willows in a medium nib, inked up with Diamine Ochre. We have a Parker Duofold Prestige Blue Chevron in a medium nib with Parker Quink Blue. We have a Visconti Millennium Arc Moonlight with a medium nib that writes more like a broad or double broad, I would say, inked up with Visconti Green. We have a Visconti Millennium Arc Burgundy in a broad nib, inked up with Visconti Bordeaux. We have a Pelican M600 Turquoise White in a broad nib, inked up with Pelican Turquoise. And then we have a Fine Writing International Bronze Age Demo in a broad nib, and that is inked up with KWZ Honey. Actually, I've just realised that that's not Pelican Turquoise, that's Lamy Turquoise. But it is a really, really lovely colour ink. And in terms of my turquoise inks, I like that second to Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. So there you have it. That's the currently inked for the 3rd of June 2019. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.